welcome to week 2 of Stories on Point. This is a really, really exciting series because we get to follow in what the Lord has commanded us to do in his scripture, and that is to tell of his faithfulness, to tell of his mercy. Ladies, I'm so glad that you're here. In just a moment, I'm going to have them introduce themselves. But before we do, why do we do a series like this? Why do we tell our story? I want to start briefly with that because, there is power in your story. For Lorie today, there is power in her story. For Jackie, there is power in her story. But for you, for each and every one of you in this room, there is power in your story. In fact, the book of Revelation, chapter 12, tells us that the enemy was overcome because of the blood of the Lamb. And that is what Jesus Christ did for us on the cross, and by the words of our testimony. So that's what we bring to this. We bring our willingness to speak what he is doing in and through us. So, friends, thank you for being here. If you would, I think most of you probably have gotten the opportunity to meet these two ladies, but if you haven't, I want to start. Tell us who you are and maybe just how long you've been in Sparta.
Good morning. Oh, hang on.
You got it.
I think I know how to use this. Okay. Mm-hmm. Good morning. My name is Lorie Wright. I am probably more well-known as Lala. The cupcake lady, cake lady, whatever.
It's a good thing to be known as.
For a while. We've been back in Sparta for 17 years now. I was born in Sparta. Sparta's my home. I haven't always lived here. We've moved off. I'll get into that later, but yeah. So awesome. I have 3 kids here, 4 actually, because I have a son-in-law. They're all here, and my husband. We've been married, I don't know. Long time.
A little bit.
Almost 30 years. So almost 30 years. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lorie.
Hi, I'm Jackie.
Yeah, girl. You speak that. You speak.
I am in Sparta 7 months. I was born in Tennessee, but I was raised in New York and spent a good chunk of my time in Florida.
Well, we are so glad you're both here, and we are really thankful for your willingness to be real and authentic and vulnerable and share your story because you know what? That's where freedom is found. So thank you for that. I'm so thankful for these women, for their heart for community, for their heart for the Lord, for their heart to serve. And that really, I think, has brought them to the willingness to do this today. So let's jump right in. Lorie, let's start with the beginning, right? As every good story does, right? So take us back. Tell us a little bit about where your story started.
So I will again go back to my childhood. My biological father was into drugs, sold drugs here in town. And my mom got pregnant with me when she was 17. She was still in high school. They were together for a couple of years. He was not good to her, very abusive relationship. So she packed me up and we went back home to my grandparents. She married my stepdad when I was 2.5. My stepdad was not saved ever until probably, I was probably in high school. But my grandparents were always my church people. Like they were the ones that got me into church. They're the ones that introduced me to Jesus, basically. They made sure I was there Sunday morning, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights. They're the ones that instilled in me service to your church, being in community with your church. And so they're the ones that, my grandfather was the worship leader, so I was always in the choir with him. With my stepdad, we moved around a lot. He was an engineer. Every 2 years I was moving. Sometimes even a year I would move. I would get to a school, we would get settled, I would pack up, we'd have to move again. So I would make friends, sometimes not, because who wants to have a friend for a year and then you got to leave. With that came I was the new girl. As I got a little older, there was a lot of bullying involved in that through my childhood as I was moving, just because I was the new girl. They didn't know how to handle that, I guess. I don't know. So I was pretty secluded. I was an only child for a long time until I got into middle school. And so pretty secluded, but always wanted to come home. My mom did the best she could. My dad wasn't saved, so she took us to church when we were out of state and stuff, but it just wasn't like church. Like, it was not like home church. So I wanted to come home every chance I got. Breaks from school. I spent the summers here with my grandparents. They're the ones that really, like I said, instilled all of that in me. And so we stopped traveling when I got in high school, and that's kind of when my ministry, I guess, and just wanting to teach and share what Jesus was doing with others kind of came into play for me. And I was asked by our Young Life leaders at that time, the Simses, when I was beginning my junior year, to lead a Bible study for freshmen and sophomore girls for 2 years. They wanted me to do this. So that's kind of where I started with that. And then graduated high school, moved to North Carolina after that, and kind of sowed my oats, did some things that, you do when you turn 21, 22. Got into some trouble, came back home. And so when I got back home, I was still going to church and doing things. Ran into my husband, Brian. We did not like each other in high school. We graduated together. It's a true story. But he asked me out a few times. I said, no, I'm not, I kind of gave him yes. Then we finally went out on a date. We were married 7 months later. We're still married today. And so, God is good. God is good with our marriage, let me tell you. And so he and I, in going to church, we started helping with youth group. People were asking us to do that. So we did youth group. Then we got asked to come in. We were like, hey, there's this happening going on. And that's what our high school does here, and it's still going on to this day. So we got involved in the happening. We were not the very first ones. We did not pioneer the happening, like I said in the first service. I give all that praise to God and to Sandra Spartman for having that vision, and Joan Mitchell, who still continues, and her, Sandra's kids continue with that in all the churches. But we were the leaders in the happening and kind of built that and really got into that and poured our hearts into it and everything. And we're going and speaking to churches and talking about it and having people contact us. And they were like, hey, we'd love to do that in our hometown, or we'd love to do that, with our church. Like, can we do that with our high school? And we were like, this is something. Like, this is God. Like, he is moving. And something happened. We shared our hearts with who was then like the board of directors and things like that. And at that time, it just for them was not the right time to move into that. Okay. And we understand that. At the time, we probably didn't understand that because we were like, but that's the way it goes. This was not the way it was supposed to happen. And so, I was like, but we were called. Like, we were called into ministry. Like, we were called. What are we going to do? So Brian came home one day, and I said, hey, honey, let's go to Rhema Bible College. And he said, okay, let's go.
I love it. That is my favorite way to live. Let's just move across the country. Why not, right? If the Lord says go, we're going to go. I love it. So what I hear is you are sensing this call. You're feeling this call on your life to step in to ministry, and you are being obedient and you are being faithful not only in what he gave you here, but then to go and equip yourself, right, to do what he's calling you to next. So tell us where it went from there.
So we moved to Rhema, which is in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. That's part of Kenneth Hagin Ministries. It was a great 2 years. It was a rough 2 years.
Yeah.
Hard. When you go to Bible college, your faith is really tested. Brian went into the youth ministry department to graduate with the youth, like a youth pastor. And I decided to go with the children's ministry. And I also did a lot of other things while I was at Rhema. I was in the bookstore. I helped the dean. I tried out for the worship team because I thought, that's fun, like the big worship team that would be out front. And they were just like, you're just not the right fit for us. And I thought, oh, okay. And then a couple of days later, I got a call, and they were like, hey, we need somebody in the children's department to lead worship. And why don't you come in and talk to us a little bit? So I ended up leading worship and being on the worship team in the children's department at Rhema, which was my calling anyways, because I was there for children's pastor. And that was amazing. Some stories about us with Rhema. When you go to Bible college, you have to really depend on God. Brian had a job, like literally at like a assisted living place where he was painting and fixing up some things, and he really was not even making enough money to pay our bills. But somehow our bills always got paid. I got pregnant with Maddie while we were at Rhema, and I'll share that story too, because we had been trying to have a child and just could not get pregnant, and was like, why are we, like Bailey was in kindergarten when we moved, and so we had been trying to have a child, and we were like, oh, we're at Rhema. Let's pray for this child. So we did one night, we prayed, and it wasn't long after that I found out I was pregnant with Maddie. And so that was amazing for us, because that really showed us, that's your faith. Like, they're telling you, put your faith out there. So that's what we're doing the entire time. I had a rough pregnancy with Maddie. I had a placenta previa. And during my pregnancy, there was a lot. She came early due to complications. She was born. They whisked her away. I had complications. They were telling us she had a heart murmur, and we were just like, no, she does not. Like, no, we're not, this is not happening. And so when we finally get together as a family, she's fine. They took her for a test. They don't see anything. She's wonderful. So, we move on. And so we ended up being blessed with our second child while we were at Rhema. And there were days at Rhema where we didn't have formula for her. We barely had food, and we would get a call, check your mailbox or do this or whatever, or somebody would bless us with groceries or something. It was amazing to see God work through that, but like I said, it was a hard season for us. We ended up graduating there and moved to Sevierville to help with the church. Brian was going to be a youth pastor, I was children's pastor. And I will just say that when we got there, after we got there for a while, it was not what it was supposed to be. For me, it was just, for us, for our family, it was just not what it was supposed to be. And you have those moments, I think, and you're just like, oh goodness. But I wanted to serve the Lord. I wanted to be in ministry. I wanted to do this. So I was trying to be so faithful to Him. But at that same time, I was crumbling and I was broken. I was like, Lord, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And at that time, like, my marriage started to really, take a turn. And there were just things that we just couldn't get through. So we ended up leaving that church, and we stayed in Sevierville for a while, and we went to a couple of churches. But like I said, I was on the Rhema thing. I was like, Lord, where are you going to send me next? Like, this was not right. We laughed the other night because I had remembered that I had almost took our family to Malta. I don't know if you guys know where that's at, but this is an island.
Didn't seem
so we
so
were
bad.
like, hey, I know it's a beautiful place, but I was like, hey, they need somebody in Malta. Should we go? What should we do? Like, I'm like ready to go. And then I get a call, and they're like, hey, we need you to pioneer in this church. And these were people from Rhema. And we need a children's pastor. Would you guys be willing to come to Texas? I'm like, okay. So we go to Round Rock, Texas. We spend the weekend. We're like, yes, we're all in. This church is great. It's our vision. This is what they're talking about. We're doing this. I'm going to be a children's pastor. So we put everything into it. We moved to Texas, to Round Rock. We get there. Was not like it was supposed to be, y'all. They had changed the name of the church. They had changed the vision of the church. They had changed everything. And guess who they forgot to tell? Us. So again, I was like, Lord, and Brian did not like it at all. We just did not. It was just not our fit. We tried. We went. We served. I felt like the people had left us. I really, toward the end, felt like God had left us. We were broke financially. We were broken. We were church hurt because nobody was like, we were like, where did all these people go that were supposed to be here? We're helping them, and they're gone. Like, they just want us to show up and do this work, but then they don't want to help us in the meantime with anything. So we get to a point to where we have no food and no nothing, and I'm crying, and I'm just like, I'm done. So I go in the bedroom, I throw my Bible. I'm like, God, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't have anything to do with you, with ministry. I'm finished serving. And I just put my Bible in the drawer, and I'm just like, have this pity party for myself. We had a house in Sevierville that was supposed to sell, had not sold the entire time we had been there. And then all of a sudden, my mother-in-law calls us because she is our real estate broker. we got a cash buyer for your home. What do you want to do? And we were like, we're coming home. We're coming home. So we put it in motion. We came back to Sparta. We were so church hurt. We didn't want to get into a church at that point. But we ended up later on getting back into church and going some different places. And I'll get into that.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Lorie, because I think that, it reminds me, we were talking about this week, of the story of Joseph in many ways. And we see throughout much of the book of Genesis, towards the end, we see, we see Joseph, the enemy tries time after time to destroy God's call on Joseph's life, right? God had called him for a purpose. There was something he was called to accomplish in the kingdom. And we see the enemy try to end his life, try to ruin his reputation. We see him forgotten and betrayed by the people that were supposed to be there for him, right? It sounds familiar. And what I love, though, is as we get to the end of the story, Joseph, we're able to see how he could see the power of God to restore a situation that seemed hopeless, right? And in chapter 50, we find him say, you intended to harm me, enemy. You wanted this to be the end of what God called me to do, but God intended it all for good. So where is your but God moment? Where have you seen God restore some parts of your life that the enemy wanted to destroy?
Well, God has restored my marriage. Brian and I have been
Thank
through
God.
a lot, but
God.
we're still married, which is a testament to God through all that we've been through. And he's, in these last few months, he has, I've had a lot of loss with a lot of things, and he has restored me as far as telling me, I need you to go back into ministry. I need you to go back into serving. I need you to be where I had called you from before, to step back into that. And so there's just a lot of restoration there with us, with our family, and getting back into church and everything. So
I love
it's
it.
been good.
I love it. We're going to put a pin in it right there. We're coming back, though. So let's hear, Jackie, from you. So tell us a little bit about you, your story. Where did it begin for you?
It began right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Well, over there in Nashville, Tennessee.
Just right up the way. Right up the way a little bit.
My parents were married. I left. They divorced, and I left. My mom took us back to New York, where her family was. I was probably 5. My brother may have been 3. And we moved in with our grandmother. My mom is now a single parent, and she grew up with her mother being a single parent. And in this environment, living with them, the dynamic kind of was, if we don't talk about it, it's not happening. And it doesn't make it real. What happens in this house stays in this house. And I don't have my dad. I remember my dad calling me the day before I made my communion and telling me that he was not going to make it. And that was the last time I heard from my father for 28 years. I was 32 when I met my dad. Disclaimer, my mom did the best she could with the only way she knew how, even if it was extremely toxic. I had no guidance. I had no dad. I had no guidance. I grew up in a very small town, and 90% of my friends come from single-parent homes. There was no dad either. So we're all a little rebellious, chips on our shoulders, and at a very early age started getting into things that we probably had no business getting into. None of us had any God guidance at all. I went to church. It was a Catholic church. Sorry, guys, it was not for me. I knew who God was. I knew what he was capable of. I did not understand the importance of having a relationship with him. So it's non-existent in this point. At 15, I left my mother's house to be with a 19-year-old man, and he was abusive, y'all. He almost killed me. I stayed there until I was 18 years old. No, my mom did not come knocking on his door to try to get me to come home. My brother, at this point, has caught some really big charges and ends himself up in prison at a 16, 17-year-old in prison with real grown men. But again, if we're not talking about it, it's not happening. So I stayed in that relationship until I was 18, until he literally almost killed me. And God must have sent one of his neighbors to the door that day, because that's what stopped him from almost getting me. I went back home to my mother. Nothing changed as far as the relationship between the two of us. I am heavy into drugs, heavy into alcohol, not one single care in the world. And I ran around like that for years. I ended up in the hospital. I struggled terribly with depression and mental health. I took a bunch of pills one night, and my friend found me the next morning. I was not supposed to be here, y'all. But God was like, hey, girl, come on.
Yeah, we're
Come
not
on
done.
back.
We're not done.
We're not done. I stayed in the hospital inpatient for a month. My mom only visited me once. I struggled to find the right medication, the right plan for me. I ended up in a group home, the only girl with all men, also struggling severely with mental health issues. And I had to find a way for myself. That brought me to the kitchen. Feeding these guys, nurturing them also healed me. Trying to help them heal themselves helped something in me that needed to be healed. I don't have a relationship with God at this point still. I met Trey's dad, my oldest son, and I got with him, and I was with him for years. He was also abusive. He was a very, very bad alcoholic, and still currently is. I am on, at this point, probably 12 different medications, I think up to like 16 to 20 pills a day, just to keep my mental health stable. But it's not working because I'm still doing all the things I shouldn't be doing, drugs, drinking heavily, sometimes not taking the medicine. And then I found out I was pregnant with Trey. And I threw every single pill in the garbage, and I was like, well, I'm gonna do this. But I still don't incorporate God into all of this. He's still not my home base. He's still not where I'm planted feet in front of and I'm trying to get rid of this. I'm still doing, because I think I know it all. I think I can fix it all and I don't need anybody else to take control over me. I'm gonna do it myself. Wrong. Very wrong. And I took Trey and I finally got away from his dad and I moved to Florida. And I was a single mother in Florida, obviously, and that for us was where things kind of turned a little bit, not much. I struggled with him. He was the only person I moved. My brother had already lived there. I do have a younger brother, y'all. I don't have a relationship with him, and I'm not going to get into details there. This lovely wise woman said you should speak from your scars and not your open wounds. He's in Florida. He does great. That's where we're going to leave that.
Yep.
My mother is in a relationship at this point. She has now remarried, but he is abusive, and he does not want me or my brother to have anything to do with my mother. Basically, we weren't allowed to live at her house, so we kind of had to fend for ourselves. That's what prompted me to move to Florida. And he had also, obviously, he's out of prison, and he now moves to Florida. He gets himself a girlfriend, a wife. He's established. I'm there with Trey. That's my background. That's where it comes. This depression and all of the things I went through was definitely an attempt from the enemy to keep me where I was, and it worked for a really, really long time. Probably from 15 to about 30 years old, a solid 15. He had me in a chokehold, y'all. That was my best friend. We were doing it all together.
Yeah. And you know, what we know, because we now have the ability to look back and we know his word, and we know that John 10:10 says that the enemy's purpose is to kill and to steal and to destroy. And I think that, you know, as we hear your story, Jackie, we can see time after time that is exactly what he would have desired to do. That was his purpose in walking that road with you. But we know the story doesn't stop there, right? We know the verse also doesn't stop there, because it goes on to say that his purpose is to give us an abundant life, right? A rich and abundant life, a full life. And he shows us time and time again that he is a God of restoration. And we talked earlier about Genesis 50 and those but God moments. So how have you seen him restore the things that the enemy wanted to destroy in your life?
Well, I had this beautiful little baby, Trey, and at 32 years old, my dad called, and he wanted to meet his grandson. And he didn't know how he was going to feel about it, because I have mixed children. They are biracial, and my dad was raised in a different time of life, and they don't do interracial. He was born and raised in Tennessee. He was thick country accent, honey, hair down his back, and he didn't play no games. But God said, look at this little baby. You're going to deny this child? Nope. As soon as he saw my son, it was instant. Thick as thieves. I had the best relationship with my dad for 5 years after that. And he passed
Yeah.
while I was pregnant with my second child. Lo and behold, y'all, Ray has blonde hair and blue eyes, just like my dad, was the spitting image of him at birth. And I know my dad was with me and is still with me. Restoring. I've never gone back to a psych ward after that month stay.
Yes.
I've maintained good mental health. The relationship with my mother, because there was so much resentment towards my mother for my dad not being around and her never explaining to us what happened between my parents. So we had no idea. But I didn't hold it against him, I held it against her. That relationship has since, I live with my mom now. We moved to Tennessee together. And God works daily to restore that relationship, and daily it gets a little bit better.
Yes.
It's not where it needs to be, but he's not done with it yet.
Right.
So, where was I?
He's restoring right and left is what I'm hearing.
So much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's such a beautiful picture, because the things that, your journey watching your mom as a single mom, now you are walking that path and you see the opportunity even to restore in your own mind and in your own heart. And he's doing that work because he's doing it on behalf of your kids as well, right? And so I think it is such a beautiful picture, but what we know is sometimes we can create a picture of what we think our lives should look like, right? But then there's circumstances and there's challenges and there's things we never asked for or anticipated that come in, and they can make us question everything, right? And we find ourselves looking around and we're like, it wasn't supposed to be this way. This was never what I signed up for, God, right? But you know what? What I know and what you said is he's not finished with you yet. Romans 8:28 says he's working all things together for good for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And that doesn't mean good as Alex said it earlier. It doesn't mean it's always rosy, it's always easy, it's always smooth. But what it means is he is making us more like him. He is working all the things, not every individual situation, but all your story together. And he is writing that. So as we take these last couple minutes as we're closing today, I think about looking ahead. I want us to look ahead. And while your story may not have looked like you thought it would, you have already shared God's faithfulness to restore what the enemy wanted to steal from you. But I'm drawn this morning to Ephesians 3:20. And it says that God is working mightily in us to do more, to do immeasurably more. Some translations say infinitely more than we could ask or even imagine. So friends, tell me about your more.
Well, my more comes from, when we moved back to Sparta and we're searching for churches, I was also building a baking business at that time, on and off for years. And it got so big that I decided, I'm going to open a shop. And I did. So I come to the fact that had I not ever opened that shop, I would have never met some of the ladies here and the sisterhood here at Christ Point, because they came into my shop and we got to be friends, and we started coming to church for a while, and I started meeting all of these wonderful women, and I thought, I'll go to the ladies' retreat, which was amazing. I had found my community that I had always prayed for, and Texas wasn't bad because that's where I started baking, so it came around. So when my business started, I moved my business. It started kind of not working. I was still here at Cross Point. We were here, and I was trying to serve more, but I didn't really know. But God has shown me so much more. And being here and just in this season, I know why I'm at Cross Point. I know why I had the shop. I know that it was because I met these beautiful women. I was able to come to this church, and I was able to have people believe in me that I would be able to get on this worship stage again after over 10 years of not believing in myself to even step on a stage again to sing praises to God at all. And now I have moved into this wonderful sisterhood, students, leadership position to share, and I'm back where I need to be as far as serving in my church where God has always wanted me. But I've said yes, even through the loss this year that I've had. I've said, you know what, God, I'll give it all to you. I don't know what you want from me, but I'm just going to walk it out. And here I am. So he will do above and beyond anything that you ever ask of him. I mean, he has restored me. He has restored my marriage. I cannot tell you how grateful I am right now to be sitting here in this church with this community. And when they say welcome home, I mean, I know a lot of you don't, but it truly is my home. I mean, it has become my home. And for people to love on me and to believe in me for my purpose has been just amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Jackie, tell us about your more.
My more was this church. My more was the women's retreat and leaving every bit of resentment towards my mother up there on that mountain. My more is cooking for y'all now every Wednesday because it's my favorite thing to do. My more was allowing God to step in and treat me and show me how to forgive myself, one, but everybody else too.
Yes.
My more was walking in here with all my flaws and all, and y'all accepting not only me but my kids and giving us, all of us, a love that I was not at that time able to give my kids because I never had. Those are the mores for me.
Wow. You know, what I hear is I just wanted to not be broken. But God not only put me back together, but he's now helping me. He's working through me to heal a next generation. I hear I just wanted a safe place, but God gave me family. Family like I never knew and like I never had. He wants to give us more. And so today, you know, maybe you find yourself in a place where you're like, the enemy right now, it feels like he's succeeding in that purpose to kill and to steal and to destroy in my life. And I am begging you today to not leave without surrendering that situation to the Lord. Because you know what? This abundant life that they're talking about, this restoration, this hope, this healing, it is not just for Lorie and for Jackie. It is for you too. And you know, following God, we've said it a few times today, but I want to make sure we know it doesn't mean that you're never going to face another challenge. But can I tell you that it means you can face them with the confidence of knowing you're never going to do it alone. And so we're going to stand together here today, and we're closing out our service. And I just want to invite you, if you don't have that confidence today, if you don't know without a doubt that you are walking into what's next in this situation with full surrender, with full hope, with full salvation, I want to invite you to pray. And we're going to do it all together. You're not going to pray this alone either today. We're going to pray it all together. And it's a prayer of salvation. And maybe you've prayed a prayer like this before, but it's been a while. Maybe God's stirring something new in you. Maybe you've never prayed it before, but let me tell you, the Lord has more for you too. And it starts with this prayer. It starts with asking him to come in and to forgive you of the things that you've carried, the things that you're holding on to lay them down for him. So I'm going to ask us all, let's close our eyes today. Let's get in that space with him. And I'm going to ask you to repeat this prayer after me. And think about the words that you're saying. Salvation is not something you have to earn. It is a gift that is given to you, and he is extending it to you this morning. Please pray this after me this morning. Lord, I thank you for salvation. I thank you for the gift that you give. I thank you for your freedom. I pray that you would forgive me of my sins. Cleanse my heart of anything that stands between me and you. Lord, restore me today. Thank you for your salvation. Thank you for your freedom. I will walk with you. As you keep your heads bowed this morning, I want to give space for a moment. If that was a prayer and you prayed it today, and like I said, maybe it had been a little bit. Maybe you'd never prayed it before. Maybe God's doing something new in you this morning. Will you just slip your hand up? Will you just let me know, let me seek, because I want to pray with you. I want to stand with you today. We have a church that does. God, we thank you for your faithfulness. We thank you for who you are. We thank you that you never leave us, that you never forsake us. God, we thank you for your more.